Hello ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to a new Let's Play. We're playing World End Economica Episode 1, which I just bought. This is a visual novel by the author of another, I guess, visual novel, Spice and Wolf. I hope I pronounced this correctly. Isuna Hasekura. I really hope I pronounced this correctly. It's a visual novel about according to Steam, it's a 3-part sci-fi economic thriller visual novel set on the moon. And we're gonna experience that. It was released last year. And the second episode was released a few weeks ago. So, we're gonna play the first episode. We're gonna see if I enjoy the game. If I do, I'm gonna buy the second episode and be eager to wait for the third episode. So hopefully everything will work out as good as we planned it. Now, I'm gonna check if we're really recording. And I hope it won't crash. We are recording. Perfect. Where's the game now? Please load, game. Don't crash. Do not crash. There we go. Perfect. Hold on. I probably need to change one thing. That's this. Yep, that's this. Okay, perfect. I think now we can start without any problems. I hope. Not sure though. Yeah, we should be able to play without problems. Let's look at the... Hold on. Stupid desk. Let's look at the configurations. There's not a lot. Not a lot. We have a display mode, we have text speed, we have auto advanced speed, we have visual transitions. We have BGM volume, SFX volume, and font. But I don't see any font, so I guess you can download additional fonts. I'm not sure. Then we have an option for Japanese and an option for English, load, and exit. So let's start with English. In the past, people really believed that there was a doorway to an alternate world on the dark side of the moon. This dark side could not be seen from Earth, and it was only a few decades ago that images were successfully taken of it. As Earth had been visited, mapped, and divested of all its mysteries and secrets, it was made painfully clear that there were no rabbits on the moon, no traces of aliens, and certainly no pieces of portals to alternate worlds. This was perhaps why the journey to the dark side of the moon through the vastness of space was so fascinating for me when my parents took me there as a kid. Mankind had never set foot upon any of the glittering stars that were arrayed before me. When I realized that, I felt a desire to leave my footprints where no one had gone before. It wasn't until after I learned more about the world, that it dawned on me what a foolhardy dream that was. Regardless, it was something that shook to the core so much that I nearly wet my pants. Title. Afterwards, everything before me became a stepping stone in my mind, towards my dream of setting foot where no one had gone before. I had no time to waste. If I didn't act now, then someone else would leave their footprints there first. Faster, faster, much faster. The population continued to grow and time ruthlessly slipped away. Only a handful could be the vanguard of it all. Not a day went by where I didn't ponder what I could see. It would be a new frontier where familiar places, customs, and the past would not exist. A frontier where every small movement I made would become part of history. The footprints of the first humans on the moon could still be found preserved in the Sea of Tranquility Memorial Hall. Those footprints told uncountable tales. Footprints left in the sand, measuring just shy of 30 inches. Even so, they were amazing footprints that sent shivers down my spine. With a click, my mobile PC turned on. I awoke to the whirring of the hard drive. Since I had fallen asleep curled up in my chair, clutching my PC, it was difficult to get my body to move. My body felt so stiff, I was sure that a careless motion would break something. Even so, I rather enjoyed the sensation of slowly stretching out my limbs from this cramped position after waking up. It made me feel alive and truly let me know that I was awake. I willed my arms to move, then my legs. Although hardly efficient, this was how I chose to do things, and was what happened when I woke up every morning. It was a satisfying action, and one I never had a chance to savor before I left home. On top of the table, I had left my rather crude diode lamp on, and a coarse layer of fat had formed on the surface of the leftover coffee in my dirty cup. Beside my cup was a half-eaten chocolate bar, which I reached for and crammed into my mouth. I swallowed the unpleasantly sweet chunk as the PC finished booting up. At that moment, my brain went to work as I verified that I had my wallet, memory cards, and bag on me, and that none of it had been stolen while I was asleep. It appeared that I had survived the previous night, only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. However, in order for me to survive today, I would have to make some money. It had been 3 months and 12 days since I left home. Telling myself that I wasn't just some well-to-do kid pretending to be a ruffian, I flipped open the organic display. Jesus Christ! Holy shit, okay. Action, action! I was staying in a cheap net cafe. It was a good-for-nothing establishment that leached Wi-Fi from another shop, and its customers were of equally questionable quality. Hey kid, a fine morning, isn't it? As I left the booth to go wash my face, an unkempt clerk greeted me as he played a game at the counter. I figured he wasn't so much being friendly as much as he was making sure I knew he was watching me. The only entrance and exit were next to the counter, and off to the side on the wall were the words "Everyone pays, no freeloaders." Even though this sad excuse for building was built in a sewage canal, money was always collected. The only thing that concerned me when I left home was finding a place to sleep. Though I had some money, I couldn't really change my appearance. Ah, fine morning. I'm not fond of your sarcasm, Earth Dog. Hold on. It was actually really loud. The clerk's face twisted into a smile at my retort. Oh ho! It is unfortunate to not know what a real morning looks like, since the weather here is just a computer program. He said that lightly as he returned his gaze to his game. He seemed to be from Earth, though I wondered if he came to the moon as unskilled labor, got fired, and ended up here as an outcast of some sort. Why don't you head on back to Earth, then? At my words, he turned briefly to glance at me and laughed sarcastically. Things are a bit better here than down there anyhow. That's how he responded. Moon scum? Without responding, I went to the washroom. Oh crap. My name's Yoshiharu Kawaura. No, my name's Yoshiharu Kawaura. I was born and raised in this lunar city, so I was genuine moon scum. I returned to my booth, entered my password, and booted up the tool application on my computer. A welcome screen. whose only good point was its friendliness, was followed by a merciless and desolated landscape much akin to the surface of the moon. Countless lines of words flickered on the screen. I imagine it's the kind of effect you'd get if you took a picture of the undeveloped part of the moon's surface with a low-res camera. The screen showed a session of the lunar stock exchange. This was the kind of place for moon scum like me to make a living. I'll get rich without needing to break a sweat. I didn't have enough time to earn an honest living. I took a deep breath and went about business. Let's go about business. Downward revision for the first fiscal quarter of CK Bio. Possibility of an investigation into Emerald Industries over suspicions of collusion. Regarding inflation, the board of directors at the Lunar Central Bank. No. With one eye on that stream of news, I focused on managing 220 stocks, picking up those with lost price fluctuations. For instance, if one stock had moved 10% on the previous day and another had moved 1, there was probably a high chance that the stock that moved 10 could move by 1 today. I would trade it on that notion alone. Putting into consideration the mood of the market based on the news, I would buy stocks with large fluctuations within the turbulent up and down movement of the price. I could extract some profit, which is what I occupied myself with between 9 AM and 5 PM lunar time. Between those hours, the only thing that went into my mouth were food that I could eat one-handed and drinks. To be honest, I'd be so engrossed in trading that breaks were uncommon. Even if I had the free time to take a break, I'd rather use it to look at my screen to grasp price fluctuations and do some trades. After all, a difference of a few minutes when making the call to buy or sell could easily mean the difference between gaining or losing 1 or 2%. My war chest was 72,000 mools. 1% of that came out to 700 mools. The store clerk here would make 7 mools an hour at best. This was a place where a public school teacher's monthly starting salary was 1,200 mools, so I could make in a few minutes what they'd make in a month. Of course, over the course of a day's trading, some people would win and others would lose, but I was on the winning streak of all streaks, and before I knew it, my seed money of 1,000 mools had ballooned to 72 times. That. The one and only time I did honest hard labor in my life was to build that seed money. Since then, I'd just been building my assets through these trades. While the gains were a little less than what they used to be, the greater your assets grew, the faster they grew, so it didn't worry me. I'd be what they'd call a snowball effect. I'd never seen snow before, but I'd seen videos of Earth before, and this I was familiar with it. I had decided that I was going to make even more money and then live in the center of this lunar city. It's a place where tons of ridiculous smart people were gathered. It's said that 70% of this world's wealth was held by the people there. I'd live it up there, and then... The back of my head was high on these kinds of delusions as I performed trade after trade like a man possessed. That's why it took me a while to notice. I finally did after I got smacked on the head. Yo, kid! I turned around to see that clerk from before standing in front of the boot's open door. What, you want money? Since when this place become prepay? Or what? Was it something else? Was making money not allowed here? What do you want? I'm busy. As I glared at him, the overly skinny, bleary-eyed clerk let out a tight sigh. That's your reply? I came... No! That's your reply? I came to tell you that the police are on their way to gather up street urchins and... Before the clerk finished his sentence, my PC had closed and thrown into my bag. Hey, wait! The employee grabbed my shoulder as I tried to push him aside and exit the booth. Though he was thin, he was still muscular, strong enough to remind me that he was an adult. Still, I always kept a set amount of money in my breast pocket for times like this. I grabbed it and thrust it into his hands. Keep the change. I put on my hat, shouldered my bag, and ran down a narrow corridor. Wondering what was going on in the booth, a bunch of guys who looked like they'd just mumble useless replies to any police questioning peeked through the cracks from their boots, wondering if someone had been arrested. After sliding past the dirty counter, I made it to the store's even filthier exit. The chipped away paint and rust made the already cramped building feel even more claustrophobic. I went straight down the hallway towards the open air. There were stairs if I turned left, and at the end of the hall... there were stairs if I turned left at the end of the hall, but I had never had any plans to use them in the first place. Without a moment's hesitation, I kicked off the floor, jumping as high as I could. Passing over the concrete wall, my body flew out over the street. Because the cafe was on the 5th floor of the building, there was a heck of a view below me. I jumped towards the wall of the building opposite me and then kicked off from that wall, aiming back towards the wall of the first building. Once the sole of my foot hit a pipe on the wall, I jumped straight up with all my strength and resolve. Human genes had been fine-tuned for living on Earth over millions of years, so with some weight training, anyone could perform feats like these on the moon, where the gravity was lower. What you couldn't do was to allow yourself to miss your daily training. Jumping from wall to wall, I quickly reached the 14th floor of the building next door. Jesus Christ! Yeah, I guess my heart rate did go up a bit. I glanced down to see a pair of blue uniformed policemen looking bored as they tapped the batons on their shoulders and climbed the stairs. It seemed that clerk wasn't playing a prank on me when he gave me that tip. I already paid my thanks to him when I handed him that money though. By now he should probably have already used the change from it to kick back with a store-bought beer. For a moment I opened up my bag in the hallway and flipped open my PC screen. I ran off in the middle of a trade and so my position hadn't changed. I should be able to get at least a weak wireless connection out here. If I were lucky, prices would have risen and I'd be home free. But usually at times like this, figures. After hanging my head in disappointment, I closed out my losing positions and called it a day. Nothing good could come from wandering around downtown in the middle of the day. After jumping from one building to the next, I decided to walk down the deserted hallway towards my favorite Chinese restaurant. It was a time of the day when most people my age would be at school, so walking around carelessly would get you chased by the cops before you knew it. Until you turned 18, the legal age here, it was mandatory that you belonged to some sort of educational institution. Some people would say that this was a good thing, while others grumbled something about government-funded programs. I fell into neither camp. My way of dealing with systems I didn't like was to quietly escape them, not to loudly criticize them. On that note, this area with all of its complicated passages and extreme elevation changes, it's not odd to see the 7th floor of one building be next to the basement of another, was convenient for people like me. Not to mention the overgrown vegetation here and there that acted as cover. These plants weren't originally included in the city plans, but had leaked out of one of the many lunar laboratories where they were messing with their genes. Supposedly, genes had tons of factors that expressed themselves differently depending on the environment, so a lot of plants and animals started acting strangely as soon as they were brought to the moon. There were even people saying that life forms on Earth could have originated from outer space and brought to Earth via the moon. God. Some of these plants grew so well on the moon's inorganic matter that you might wonder if they'd been around here for 1,000,000 years. Of course, it wasn't as if these plants were free from the laws of physics. Nitrogen and other nutrients from them were often brought over from Earth. So I hadn't heard about any worries that the surface of the moon would be taken over by the greenery. This applied to more than just plants. As for the humans here, I didn't matter how many ultra-elite tanks came to energize the lunar economy and its industries. Life here just wasn't sustainable without sending a lot of things over from Earth. According to the government statements, even if the orbital elevator were to stop moving today, there was currently enough biomass here to create an enclosed, recycling-based environment. In other words, we'd be able to eat food, crap it out, then use that crap to grow more food to eat, and so on. They'd be able to make a ton of electricity with solar panels while collecting direct sunlight to use a super hot source of heat, so maybe they're right. I mean, people even say that Earth was in more danger environmentally since they're still relying on oil and nuclear power. I didn't know who was right. Whatever the case, I had dreams, and if it meant making my dreams come true, I didn't care if it was on Earth or the moon. I'll end the first episode right here. So I'll save and empty slot and saved. And I'll thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. So have a nice day and goodbye.